Good morning, everybody. I'm Ron Miscavige, and this is Life After Scientology, and I have a very, very special guest on today. A dear friend, an old friend, but more than that, there's a person who is a great actress, good looking, but most of all, a humanitarian who has been recognized for her accomplishments with the show that she's done called The Aftermath. Now, listen to this. Here's some of the awards that her and Mike Rinder have gotten for this show. And, oh, by the way, let me tell you right at the top, you have got to watch the final episode. It's going to be on the 26th of this month. That's August. At 9 p.m. That's a Monday, by the way, not Tuesday. So, August the 26th, Monday, at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You do not want to miss this, so get all of your friends, even your enemies, to watch this. Getting back to what I started saying, here are some awards that she has gotten to recognize for her humanitarian efforts. An Emmy Award, a PGA Award, an Online Film and TV Association Award, 2 Alliance for Women in Media Foundation Gracie Awards, the Impact Award, at the Critics' Choice Real TV Awards, TCA Award, and another Emmy nomination for the 3rd and the final season. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning, honey. And these awards, as you know, we all feel similarly that it really is about you guys. The awards really belong to you all who are willing to speak up and speak out. And so it really is all of our contributors who deserve that praise because, excuse me, I've said this many times, that I'm in the public eye and I have the protection of the public and our audience, and most people don't have the protection of that, and so they're deciding to speak out on our show results in Scientology fair gaming them, which is a policy of Scientology to destroy people. And they do that knowingly and willingly. They have a hate website set up within seconds, and so it really is not, bullshit when I say it really does belong to the people who are speaking out.
Well, I appreciate that, but I just give you an acknowledgement.
I appreciate that,
yeah.
I really do, but
Yeah.
it's.
Well,
I'm just amazed and impressed with people who are willing to, not only support us publicly, but people who are willing to come on our program and speak.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and let me say up front, and I'll say in the middle of the program or at the end of the program or any time, Leah, whatever you do, you have my and my wife's backing 100%.
I know that. Thank you.
We'll help you in any way we can, anytime, and any place.
And that is true, because anytime I've asked you, Becky, or any one of our core folks from season 1, 2, and 3, I need help with something, it is always a yes.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, I didn't announce this because I was telling you about the different awards. I have my wife on this morning, Becky. Shall I say hello, Beck?
Hello. Hi, Leah.
Hi, Bex. Yes, I love your wife. Love.
That makes 2 of us.
Yeah, good.
Oh, excellent.
And we have a new member of the family, a little cat named Frank.
Yeah.
And he was
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And he was the runt of the litter, abandoned with some of his brothers and sisters at the veterinarian's place, just as a small kitten. The veterinarian took him in and nursed him back to health. They were dying. And we picked him up. And the runt of the litter is healthy. He's eating the best cat food available.
Love.
And he has gone from being an abandoned runt of the litter to where that cat owns a house, 2 cars,
Yes.
and has 2 servants. That's me and my wife.
Yeah, we're full time.
Of course.
So
Yes.
I would bring him on the show, except he hasn't learned how to speak English yet.
Not yet. Yeah, give it a minute.
Okay, we give it a minute. Now, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything you'd like to say about that last show you're doing?
Well, it was very emotional. Becky, as you know,
Yep.
You were there. I couldn't stop crying because this was a very, personal project for me. It still is. And I'm just happy that we were able to have this finale episode, and elated that we can finally speak somewhat on the Danny Masterson case that is still pending with the district attorney's office. So I was happy that we were able to cover that, and we are touching on some things that we really wanted to talk about, which is the sexual abuse that is rampant in Scientology. And, what I found interesting in general, it's been almost 6 years that I've been out, is that it's still shocking to me that I'm still finding out what has taken place in the Sea Organization. These are things Becky and Ronnie, both as you know, parishioners like me weren't privy to this information, and you know that is true.
Absolutely.
It's not,
Oh, for sure.
and by the way, Becky, if something occurred in the Sea Organization where you are instructed to beat people, other Sea Org members, or Sea Org members were beating you, or you were sexually molested in Scientology, I don't think people understand that you wouldn't particularly be talking about that to your own husband and vice versa. And I think that's something that no one really it's just not done. You wouldn't go. That would be considered something that you were. The word they use is called nattering.
Mm-hmm.
Which means what? That you're like talking crap because you have things that you've done that are similar. So it's not an open conversation environment. You would not even be talking to your own spouse about these things. Not to mention the culture. You were raised in Scientology to believe we don't use the words pedophile. We don't use the words molestation, rape, abuse. These are words that are just not taught to us, even as parishioners.
No.
So the words are changed in Scientology to be something else. So we are talking about that in the finale, but more importantly, how Scientology has successfully covered up their crimes and how they have and will continue to obstruct justice because they're taught to lie. And that those lies are justified by the goal of Scientology, which is we're clearing the planet. We're making it a better place. So we're discussing that in the finale, talking to some brave people who have come forward to talk about what they've experienced in Scientology. And I feel like I'm doing a monologue that's never ending.
Well,
but
that's okay.
Interesting that when I asked, how many people do you think were in the audience, Beck? And when I say audience, this is all ex-Sea Org members and former members of the Church of Scientology.
Oh, God.
How many people do you think were there?
Probably 45.
Okay. I said, how many of you have experienced sexual, physical abuse in Scientology or know someone who did? And every single person raised their hand.
Yeah.
Yep, but it wouldn't. But you're right. It was the mannerism of which we were taught what we could talk about and what we couldn't talk about that would prevent people.
And to whom? You could only talk to a Scientology employee.
Right. Well, no, more specifically, it had to be your Scientology counselor, your auditor, was the only person you were going to talk to about it unless you were routed to the ethics officer.
Right. Another Sea Org employee.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, right. And so it's still shocking to me. It's still heartbreaking. When we talked about abuse, you guys who were on the ship, the Free Winds, that the press was erroneously calling the cruise ship of Scientology. There's nothing there's nothing about that ship that should be referred to as a cruise ship.
No,
I mean,
that's a prison ship if it should be referred to as anything.
correct. The measles ship.
I was going to say the measles.
Now, you guys were talking to me and telling me about being chained into the engine room and as punishment, and Mike was like, "Oh yeah." I mean, Mike just I don't know if this makes it that made it to air. I don't know about the final edit, but again, shocked that this was going on.
But see, there's so many things, Leah, that if during that audience format, you'd remember something, and that's why Mike probably went, "Oh yeah," because it was like, I never thought about crawling through the bilges and over 100-degree heat, getting covered with oil and sludge and yuck and who knows what germs as, like torture, until I was sitting there in the audience going, oh my God, I have been through so much mental abuse, physical abuse, and they are abuses, and it is torture. I mean, Ron, you've been in the bilges.
Listen, Leah, I was assigned to the bilges for something that I didn't do. Somebody else did. Right. Somebody in front of the band starts spouting off about things that he shouldn't have been talking about. And because I didn't, and I was the band leader at the time, and I didn't start the band playing to overwhelm what he was saying, the whole band was assigned to go to the bilges. Listen, I was in my 60s at the time. The temperature down there is between, I would say, 120 and maybe 125. That's hot. Yep. There's no protective gear. You just go down there in sneakers and shorts and a T-shirt, and you work there. And at the time, I had a bit of a heart condition, and there was no concern for that, whatever. Just go down there and get punished. Now, that's supposed to make a person better. Right. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you what it does. It makes you think, I got to get the hell out of this place. This is nuts. Right. So that's their method of reforming people, torturing them, like being sent to the bilges. And Becky, how many times?
Becky, can you guys talk about a little bit what that is? I mean, what does that, you would just be sent down to this engine room and oil and sludge, like you're saying this was a normal operation. And 10 or 15 people stood up in the audience. Yeah, and we're saying this was normal operation.
Yeah, it was, and you didn't even think of it as too much torture, like I said, until you've been away from it and you realize that, oh my God! I mean, when I came home, I started listing out the different things that were abusive that had never even crossed my mind until we did that show.
Why don't you tell them what you do when you're down there?
Well, when I was down in the bilges, I was just scraping off the yuck from the side of the walls. I don't even know what it was because it's such a filthy sludge. I mean, you're talking, it's the oil, the wastewater, all the combination of the salt water, the seawater. I mean, you come out of there like a small animal that's been drugged through mud, dirt, grime, grease, and you smell like hell. And yet you're supposed to go clean up real quick so you can run eat.
Yeah.
Right, and this is usual. And, Becky, it's like what you're saying. You didn't realize this was abuse until when we were filming the show.
Yeah, there is so much.
And how many of us are saying that today? How many Sea Org members' children are there not realizing what is happening to them is, one, illegal, and abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because
that's part of the problem when you're raised in a cult, is you don't even know in the outside world these words.
Yeah.
Learning when you're a Scientologist or a Sea Org member, your first mandatory learning is the training routines.
That's right.
This is a communications course, and everybody has to do it. It's mandatory, right?
Yep. That is correct. And even at the INT base, it didn't matter. When you're at the international base, you could have been in Scientology, 30 years before you got there. One of the first things you're going to do, A, is a security course, and B, is the basic communication course, even if you've done it in the past, to make sure you know how to use that technology.
Right. And during that time, children are being exposed to explicit sexual content.
Yep.
They are being abused. They have to sit in front of a grown person while that grown person sits there and tries to make you react to what?
Oh, my God.
Like I said, sexual content, anything that to push your buttons. And if
Yep.
you're sitting there crying, they make you do it over and over again. And what you're creating is somebody who becomes used to being abused
Yeah.
under the guise of, we're trying to teach you how to be a Scientology counselor.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so in the finale, we talked about that. We met a few people who were in the Sea Org who, like most of us, were open to this kind of abuse. And it's worse for Sea Org members, but especially children. And Scientologists hand their children over to the Sea Org willingly, like it's some kind of noble thing to do. It's the only thing to do, right?
Yeah.
So true.
And this is happening every single day. Children are being put on the Scientology lie detector in a room with a grown-up. They're not allowed to leave that room. And they are asked sexual questions, as you know, on the security checks of Scientology. Yep. And this is every day. This is going on right now as we speak in Scientology.
Yep. Yep, it has not changed at all.
I'm hoping that when people see this finale again, I'm hoping that we'll start looking at it a little differently, not as a religion, because it isn't, and start doing something to save people from this and future victims, especially children, children.
Yeah.
Because listen, you can do whatever the hell you want when you're an adult, but subjecting children to this it has to stop.
Yes, and I'll tell you, Leah, the earliest thing you learn or you get inculcated into your thinking is that anything you do has to be for the greater good.
Right.
And that means protect Scientology from bad PR.
At all costs.
At all costs.
Right.
At any cost to you. You don't matter. You don't matter. But the PR of the church matters. You don't report a sexual crime. You don't report any crime to outside authorities. It's all laundry is done internally, which means it's covered up. If you were to get raped, you don't accuse your raper of raping you. What they do is they take you into a counseling session and find out what you did to incite that person to rape you. And unbelievably, you may have to go and apologize to the person who raped you. This is complete and utter insanity.
Well, Ronnie, and by the way, people should know this is standard operating procedure.
Yep.
That's right.
That is.
This is not, well, maybe there's a few bad apples. No, this is, Scientology is done by the book. What it says in writing by L. Ron Hubbard is not to be assimilated to what you think it is. It is what does it say exactly.
Yeah,
that's right.
You're right.
And there's no veering off of that. So you're sitting in front of a Scientology auditor, counselor, they call themselves. Oftentimes, I mean, they're not trained in any capacity to deal with trauma or any of that. And all they know is what L. Ron Hubbard says, and that's exactly what you said. It is what did you do to pull that in? And when you're talking about children saying, I was molested or raped, they'll still say, well, okay, when did you do that? Well, I couldn't do I'm a child. Well, yeah, but there's other lifetimes, right? So you were a man or a grown-up woman in another lifetime, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
So and they force these children to come up with some crazy scenario and narrative using this e-meter, this lie detector, and then force the child to say things like, in another lifetime, I must have done this.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it's insanity. It's insanity.
It's almost like somebody listening to this would think, well, that can't possibly go on. Well, it is so bizarre.
Yeah.
Any sane person, when I say sane, I'm talking about, person living on this planet who goes to work, has a job, and carries on life. Any sane person wouldn't consider doing this or being part of it. Yet this actually happens. This is not a story.
Well, we believed it because
of course.
we were, brought in oftentimes as children.
Yep.
Your parents are subscribing to this. And if you, as you get older, say, I don't believe this, your only option is to be left alone.
Yeah.
To be homeless, to be left without any community. Because, as you know, when you're a SEAL member, you are totally sequestered, especially you guys who were at Golden Era Productions up in Riverside County. And it's prison of belief is probably the best way to say that, because even if you were in the free world for a moment, you are still a prisoner of your own beliefs, what you've been brainwashed into believing.
Yeah.
So,
That's a fact.
we believed it. We believed it until we didn't.
Yeah.
And, we're just hoping now, like you're doing this podcast, which is amazing, and people continue to speak out. And I love that, and people need to continue to do that. People need to continue to go to the police. People need to continue to file lawsuits, and we will eventually get there. And I want to say this too. I never said that we were done. I have always promised, always, this is not done for me until something is done in a serious manner to stop these abuses coming from Scientology.
Yeah, you're right.
And the criminal acts that they have hidden and literally come to light. People go to prison. They change their policies on what they do to people. Fair gaming ends. That's when I'll stop. That's when Mike will stop.
I'm in your club.
No show.
Yep.
I don't give up easily on something that I know is right.
Exactly.
Leah, we're with you 100%. I want to say that right now, because let me tell you, there was a guy who was a baseball player, and you could call him one of the great philosophers of our time. I'm not even saying this jokingly. He made a statement, and this is what he said: "It's not over till it's over."
Right.
That was Yogi Berra. You remember that?
Do I remember? Well, how would I remember that? I'm
Yeah,
not
we
as
were
old
a
as
little
you,
young.
Ronnie, am I?
No, listen, nobody is as old as me. The only thing that's older than me in my house is I have a trumpet that was made in 1915. That's the only thing that's older than me. I'm as old as fucking dirt.
But damn it, Ronnie, you're good looking.
Well, there you go.
He is cute, isn't he?
Yeah.
Well, you can't see him on the screen, but I think she's telling the truth.
You're a handsome bastard.
I often say to myself, looking in the mirror, how do you take it? God damn, man. How do you take it?
And Ronnie, anytime you and I were anytime we're hanging out at Celebrity Center or something, and that exactly, there's a mirror somewhere in the hallway, and you'd walk by and you go, howdy.
It's a great routine. It's a great routine. I love it,
It used to make me laugh, so it still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear about that, because there's been a few people on social media going, why are you giving up? I'm not giving up. Mike's not giving up. None of you are giving up, and people are just, the fight has just begun.
I know.
That's what I would think. And I have a question for you, Leah, since we recorded for 8 hours, but there's got to be some things that hit the editing floor. And because it's a major media, did Stacey Moxon's suicide get covered?
Right. I actually don't know, because I'm not in charge of those things. But, dealing with, and I understand, dealing with television that, is sponsored, and you have, bosses. I mean, there's just, I don't exactly know, but I can tell you that story came to us a long time ago, and you spoke about it, and so did Graham Berry talked about it.
Claire Headley talked about it. I mean, for
Claire
those
Headley
of us
talked about it.
Yeah, that were
and this
there.
This was a story of a young girl who you guys knew, who worked at the Gold Base, who was electrocuted on the base. And I've spoken to the first responders who showed up, who thought it was questionable. They were a little shocked at how this was handled. not calling 911. As you know, you can't call 911 from the Gold Base in Riverside. So as an employee of Scientology, if something did happen to you, Becky, you could not contact 911. You don't have access to it. It goes to a switchboard that is a Scientology employee who would not allow you to call 911. And that is still true today. But they did not call 911, which the security people could if they wanted to. You called on a cell phone. They didn't say what happened. They said there was an accident. And you guys spoke about it, and Claire spoke about it, and that she was told, well, Becky, I don't want to speak because I was not there. But you can certainly say what your experience was because you were there.
Yeah, because, Claire was one when she started to talk about it, triggered my memory because it was the timing of everything, because Stacy died before the major crew came in. She was on the early, there was several buses that would come in at that time from our berthing, which was in Hemet, and we would get there. One of them came in for the estate crew at 6 a.m., and that's what she came on. So she, like, you sit there and think about it, it was like everything she did was calculated, planned, and timed. It would take a certain amount of time to get to the actual electric. It was one of the big electric things. We didn't have OSHA standards totally in at that time. And she could throw herself onto this electric grid, which just instantly killed her. It put that many volts through her body that it was like cremation. So that by the time the regular crew came in, I had come in early because I had to get some stuff done. And I was over at our Hubbard Guidance Center going to get a session, and when all hell broke loose, and all of a sudden they're bringing in half of the crew of Stacy's really, really good friends, because they'd already heard that she was dead.
Right.
And it was just mind-boggling. Yes, the way it was handled at the base, it was totally kind of hushed up. And then that Sunday we had a memorial service for her as a Sunday service, for everybody to say goodbye. And you were supposed to get it out of your mind at that point. That was it. This is the memorial service. Nowadays when you're out in the regular world, it would say a celebration of life, but it was like 1 hour, you're done, don't talk about it ever again.
Well, Becky, you should bring up this. There is such a thing in Scientology called a shore story. In other words, a lie. It's a story made up to cover up something. And you want to tell them what the shore story was? Why she got electrocuted?
Oh, yeah, the shore story was that she went to save a little animal from getting electrocuted and fell on it herself. Well, Stacy worked in electrical and grounds. She knew the danger of this thing. She hated small animals because they'd get into the electrical. Not like she hated, I shouldn't say that, because she was a really loving person.
Right.
But, she would not risk her own life over that electrical thing to save a squirrel or a rabbit, which was something that was a rodent for her other job.
But, Becky, this is something you guys were told. So Sea Org members, your seniors, instruct you guys to say, this is the story you're telling to authorities.
Yep. And her family. That's kind of, that's nothing was to leave. Like, we weren't instructed, like, only the people that were the responders at the electrical outage, which was a core electrical team, and then, the damage control of Scientology, who always are your front spokespersons, were the only ones.
But what were they hiding?
That she threw herself onto an electrical grid to kill herself. That's how bad she wanted out. And all she was really trying to do was go to L.A. to see her dad and her fiancé.
Her dad, who is a Scientology lawyer, Kendrick Moxon, who, of course, did not launch any kind of investigation into his own daughter's death because he's a Scientologist, right?
That's right.
And so that just came and went. Now, I've spoken to people who thought this was extremely suspicious, and you can look this story up online. But this is one of many. We had Valeska Paris, who was on the ship, Sea Org member, told us a story of a man who wanted to leave the death ship, the Free Winds, was not allowed to leave. He was on security watch. They had security guards outside of his home. I mean, not his home, his
room.
dorm.
Yeah.
And he killed himself. And what did they do is they sailed the ship to a more friendly port, right?
Yep.
And were given a short story about that.
Yep.
And told the family that he had a heart attack. I mean, it just, and story after story of these short stories, Becky, like you're saying, to have a church calling itself a corrupt organization such as Scientology getting away with this for decades. These are just two stories of how many short stories.
Oh, my God. The shore stories were just shocking, I'm sure.
Valeska was told by her seniors in Scientology to go through all this man's folders and black out anything that would incriminate David Miscavige's organization. And then she did that, and she admitted that she did that. And this was just, again, this is just normal operation for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was what you would do because you were a big-time Kool-Aid drinker at the time, so you're going to follow the policy to protect Scientology regardless of that, quote, one life that just went by.
Right.
And now, you know, you look back on it and you go, whoa, all right.
Right.
How about the overboards? We took it just okay. We're getting overboarded. It's unbelievable.
I don't
Which
even
means
think
you were thrown off the ship right now. Which people ask about, like people who are getting beaten in gold or in the Sea Org, right?
Yeah.
Because this overboarding policy that you're talking about.
Well,
is, to throw somebody literally overboard on a ship, right?
This is what L. Ron Hubbard used to do on the Apollo. And he would sit on a lawn chair and sometimes have Diana sitting next to him and maybe, I don't know about Mary Sue, but Diana, and watch people as two big guys would grab a person who maybe have messed up an auditing or a counseling session, throw the guy off the side of the ship. Now, we're talking about maybe 3 stories down.
Right.
And this is a frightful thing. This was taken as, well, may this wash the sins off your soul and you come out to be a better man. What is this? So they couldn't throw you off a ship at the international base.
Right.
But they would
and
throw
that's
you.
where the beating came into play, right? The beating.
No, but they
the
would still.
beatings replaced.
They would still throw you in a lake.
Yeah, they would throw us in the lake until the point where, like, I got thrown overboard all the time. You would have really thought I was a big time troublemaker when I was really a big time Kool-Aid drinker. Maybe I did screw up a few times, whatever. But yeah, I got thrown overboard until the point where the lake was so scummy, and you know, I found out about it, and it was like the different parasites and stuff in the lake. I literally refused to go overboard in the lake. And so they actually, me and another girl, we got, quote, overboarded in the swimming pool at the int base. You know, and, you know, you're fully dressed, blah, 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 give you your last little rites, and may you rise a better person from your sins, and boom, in you go.
Right.
And that's at about that time when I threw such a stink, and the chairman of the board, I think, found out we got overboarded in the pool. Then, it got a little more violent. It was directly hands-on beatings that kind of took place after that because it wasn't a big punishment to get thrown into the pool. Right.
And again, this is justified by, you know, you receiving it because, you know, chairman of the board, David Miscavige, is not a big guy, and people would ask him like that, like, you're a big guy, you know, I'd beat the shit out of him. It's not about height or weight. It's about your mental state, which is you believe you deserve the punishment, so you took it.
Yep.
And the bigger picture is that David Miscavige is working hard to clear the planet, and you're just a bunch of assholes screwing it up.
Yep.
And you believed that. You believed that you're a bunch of assholes screwing it up.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that you're sitting here looking at the international base. One of the requirements to even work there, you had to have an IQ over 125. Mm-hmm. So you were not some stupid idiot that was allowed up to that base. And I used to work in the division that would get people up to the base. Like,
Right.
you turned down these really hardworking, good people because their IQ just wasn't up to it, you
Right.
know? And you
Right.
kind of tried to make sure you had genius-level people. But, you know, you look at it now, and I go, genius-level people who were so brainwashed by their own
Right.
mentality of being in
Right.
Scientology for so long that they weren't going to question what was right and what was wrong.
Exactly. And listen, I was one of those people too, but
Yeah.
I wasn't in the Sea Org where you guys were in the Sea Org. I was in the Sea Org at Flag. But again, even then, it's like your mother is there. You have no home to go back to. You give up
Yeah.
everything, and you give up your non-Scientology friends and family. You virtually maybe hear from, you would hear from your sister or daughter maybe once a year, even if you were in Scientology, once
Yeah.
you're in the Sea Org. And so you become more and more sequestered into the life and goals of Scientology, which is we're helping to clear, we're the only people doing anything about man's ills on the planet.
Yeah, but
So
they
there's
talk
a
about
false sense of, sorry, Ron, go ahead, baby.
they talk about clearing a planet, right?
Hmm.
They haven't cleared a fucking street yet. And this started, what, in 1950? They haven't cleared a cul-de-sac.
Oh.
Who's kidding who? It's a story. It's a fairy tale.
Everybody's got to have a
They
cheering
haven't
section.
cleared the cul-de-sac.
No, they haven't.
But Ron, the thing is, we believe
know.
that we were,
Yeah.
right?
I know.
Because
You-
of the false statistics that are given to us.
Yeah.
Yep.
The fancy websites, people co-signing for Scientology. I
Yeah.
mean, you have that being done today. You have police departments, taking pictures with Scientology, Scientology
Yeah.
officials, and what they don't understand, what they do as a visual for somebody like me who is a parishioner was like, wow, so if the LAPD is co-signing for Scientology, they must be doing these things.
Yep.
Oh, if the Riverside County Sheriff's Department are, co-signing, they must really be decent and good. Oh, if Clearwater, PD
Yeah.
is co-signing and showing up to their events, and this must be good. They don't understand what they're doing when they do this.
No, not at all. I'll tell you, a little thing, not little, major, but you accept it. The sleep deprivation.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
That is something that can drive you nuts.
right, of course.
North Korea
Yeah.
used to do it as a way to brainwash people. Well,
Right.
this goes on all the time.
Right, I know.
Oh,
I know.
I was.
It's they justify that by saying, this is they signed up for this. They signed up for these horrendous conditions. When you leave the Sea Org and you put in 35, 40 years of Scientology, you have nothing. You have nothing. You have no pension. You have nothing.
No.
Oh.
You made, what did you guys make a week for how many hours?
Well, in the beginning it was $30 a week, and then it changed up to $50, which you got about $46. But Leah, that's when you got paid. That's when
Right.
you got paid, not every week.
Right.
As a matter of fact, on collecting my Social Security, which is basically next to nothing, there were, I think, 2 years that Scientology didn't pay in one penny to it. So you're right. You get out and you hit the ground with your 2 feet, and you got nothing.
And it's not
Right.
just your 2 feet and you got nothing. It's 2 feet and you have a thwarted viewpoint.
Yeah.
Because I still sometimes just, you look at something and realize, oh my God, I can't believe I was such a bigot. I had such
Yes.
horrible viewpoints, such
Yes.
tainted things against people when I was, quote, trying to save the world, every man, woman, and child on it. And yet, I look in the mirror today and I'm like, wow. And it's still coming off like an onion. And we've been out for 7 years. And
Yeah.
it's
Right.
just horrifying to go, I had such a, I went through sleep deprivation that was unbelievable. And-
Wait, talk about the time you were doing the translations and you had people standing next to you to make sure you didn't fall asleep.
God. Well,
This is like nuts. This is crazy.
It was, okay, so part of marketing, we really did learn every job, but I was typesetting with 3 other people, and we had to get out an Impact magazine and an International Scientology News magazine after an event in 16 languages, and we were given a week. There's only 4 of us. We had to stay up around the clock. And it got to the point where they would take people out of another division, namely the estates division, that would go work out mowing yards and cutting bushes during the day. And then they would come and have to sit next to us all night long. And if we started falling asleep, they'd get us up, take us for a quick walk around the building, put us back down. They'd get us coffee or food. We did not sleep until 16 magazines went out for each one of those in every language flawlessly, because they'd be proofread and everything. And it was well over a week until we were just literally, you know, the four of us were falling on the floor. It was 4 women. We were all in our late 40s. Oh, Annie was up in her, 60s.
And this is normal, right?
And that was normal. Yeah, that was normal. It was just like, since we were the only 4 on that entire base that could typeset in 16 languages, whenever there was anything major, we had to get it done. And that's what they would do. They would just keep us up day after day, night after night. You know, sometimes, most of the time, we didn't even go to the dining hall to eat. They'd just bring us food. We'd eat at our desk and then run us outside to look at the, you know, mountains or something to try and get us a little more peppy about staying awake.
Yeah. And this is normal, Beck. I mean, this is normal Sea Org mentality.
Yep.
You know, this is on top of the abuse. This is on top of what you experienced and witnessed yourselves, you know. It's just on top of. And again, this is just normal procedure for the mentality of the Sea Org. It's just normal operation. No one would ever think that's abnormal in the Sea Org.
No, not in the Sea Org.
This is nuts.
Yep.
Until you leave and you go, wow, what were we putting up with? What was I condoning?
Yeah.
Being a celebrity Scientologist and promoting Scientology. But again, you come out and you go, oh my God, what does this mean? What did this mean?
Well, I will tell you one thing it means. This is probably the most clever scam that's ever been run in the history of the world. I cannot think.
And it's like what Becky was saying. Like, she didn't realize what a bigot she really was, because isn't it crazy that they've run with this line, religious bigotry, about everyone who's speaking out against them, right?
Yes,
when
absolutely.
They're the biggest bigot. Like, they teach it, that you should hate people who are not Scientologists secretly, that every person who's not a Scientologist really doesn't really deserve to live.
No, they're just wogs.
You know, yeah, they're wogs. That's the term that we all use for non-Scientologists, which is a derogatory term.
Very.
And to be running around promoting that there's anything religious about you is insane. To know what the real teachings are is that, you know, if they're not Scientologists, they're not worth living.
Yep.
Yeah,
they're not worth the time of day. They're only worth time to get them in and turn them.
Yep.
But if you can't turn them, they just might as well be dead.
Yeah, just discard them.
And part of that is arrogance. That's the order of the day with Scientologists. They're arrogant beyond belief. But the worst thing is this: they don't know they are.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, you are certainly walking around thinking, you know, if you're talking to, you know, if you're lucky enough to ever be talking to a real medical doctor or a professional in their field, you are thinking, your inner monologue is, idiot, you know nothing.
That's
idiot,
right.
you know nothing.
No, you're right.
And that is what Scientology teaches. You create another personality. You are being something else. You fully believe that you know more than anyone, and that's with any kind of plaque on your wall. It wouldn't matter, because L. Ron Hubbard says you are superior.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're the top 10% of the top 10%.
Correct.
Yeah. And
we're walking around with that alter ego,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that is truly who Scientologists are. They believe they are above the law.
Yeah.
They believe they're the only ones. And people say, well, that's the most religious. No, it isn't. It isn't. This is an extremist cult.
That's right.
I don't care what they say, what I said, what you said when you were in. It was all bullshit.
Yeah.
You could be this or you could be that is a lie. You can only be a Scientologist.
That's right.
They don't tell you that at the beginning.
No. Oh, no. You can be any religion you want to be and still be a Scientologist.
Well, that's bullshit. The IRS should take issue with that.
Yeah.
Oh, no kidding. It was just such a way that it was taught to you in order to be able to convert people. No, ma'am, you can still be a Catholic, but you really need to use the study technology to teach your children to better read and understand things. Right. Oh, my God, I'm going to barf.
And then the further in you got, as you started getting auditing, they say, well, look, you can't do this because you can't be a Catholic. That's considered other practices.
Yep.
And that's
mixing
that's
practices. You can't even do yoga, spiritual yoga in Scientology.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so it's all it's a front group. That's it. That's what it is. And all of their secular, quote unquote secular activities, their literacy groups, their now they have this nonsense interfaith, whatever they're attempting to infiltrate other real religions, and all of it is just all front groups just to infiltrate these other groups. And there's a policy called the public image in Scientology, and that is what it's about, the public image. It doesn't say in the policy, look, we should really be helping people, we should be volunteering, we shouldn't be handing out our pamphlets, we should just be there to be good people. And do the right. This says infiltrate. This says appear as though. It says align yourselves with real churches. I mean, that's what it says in the policy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Go civic. I mean, this is so everything that Scientology says is all in their teachings that anybody can find.
Yeah.
These are not locked up in a friggin' locker. It's online. You can find these policies. Their books are available. Like, people could see this. The government can see these things.
Or
we cover some of that in the finale, and we talk about, like I said, things that we haven't been able to touch prior. But there was also some episodes that didn't make it to air, which was really saddening to me and Mike. And we did an episode on Hebrew Gents, as you know.
Yeah.
And we were not able to air that episode. And this is the president of the Church of Scientology.
Yep.
And he's a genuinely nice person who has just...
Oh, he's a broken man right now, though.
Totally.
He's broken. He's broken down.
Right. Now, people are still asking about Shelley.
Right.
Do you have any answers, Ron?
Well, the last place I knew that she was at the facility up in the Big Bear area, where they do take L. Ron Hubbard's words and writings, and they put them on CDs and hide them underground in case.
Titanium plates.
Yeah, the titanium plates.
And that's where she was. And
Ron, what is the purpose of that project?
The purpose of that is, if there were ever, let's say, an atomic war or a hydrogen war, and it wiped out mankind, well, whenever it would rise again, whether it's 1,000 or 10,000 years later, and if there's some spaceship around, they would see these images on the ground. They could go down, go into these vaults, and get the philosophies of L. Ron Hubbard to start the new civilization with. And look, as I even say the words, I mean, I think, Jesus Christ, did I actually believe this? Well, one of the things you would find out is that you should clean your windshields of a car with
newspaper.
With newspaper. That's a helpful thing. It's going to make a great civilization. I mean, trite things like that. What type of shoe polish you used.
Right.
Anyway, he was pumped up to be a great man, and if you get on the internet and just look at his affirmations, that alone, you'd say, wait a minute, this is not a sane man. I will say there were certain things that he did say that were true, and he got these from an era of writers, philosophical writers, in the mid-1850s to early 1900s called the New Thought Movement. That's where he got the goodies. But the bad outweighs that by so much, it's not even worth mentioning.
Thank you. I agree.
It's just...
So back to Shelley.
Yeah.
Back to Shelley. Because people continue to say, where is she? Why can't we get to her? I have tried. I'm going to say it again. I have tried many times. I have spent a lot of money on trying to get to her. I would have to file a lawsuit to get to get any information. I have not been privy to any information about where she is and that she is indeed alive or okay. I do not have that information, even though I filed a missing persons report on her.
I know that.
They would not give me that information, and to this day, I still cannot get information. I cannot get anyone to really help to find out that she is alive and okay. And then the second tier of this, as with Heber, when we try to do a welfare check on him, his niece, she was harassed by a private investigator at her home, and she was very fearful. This is a grandmother that we're harassing. Excuse me. They threatened her with legal suit. So she really did. She was scared. She was very scared, and she just wanted to know that her uncle was okay, and asked us to help. And we too were shut down. You can't even do a welfare check on a family member in Scientology. This is something that is seen as an act of war on their part.
Oh my God, yes.
On our part, right?
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I can see that from both sides.
They retaliate. They retaliate when you do a welfare check on a family member who is being held at the Gold Base. Now, Keeper did respond with some anger, and this is part of the problem with guys in the Sea Org is that they have no outside world connection, if any, right? Maybe a letter here or there.
Nope.
But they believe what we're doing is a criminal act of asking if they're okay because they consider us their enemies.
But that's not what they're told at the base. Like if I were at the base and someone was trying to check on me, you'd be told that they're trying to attack you and get some present pictures that they can use to smear you. Not that they're trying to check to see if you're okay, well-fed, and looking good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You're told that so, Becky, your seniors would come up to you and say, okay, your sister Leah is with the police department, with the sheriff's department, and they are attacking your religious beliefs. They are attacking you. They're attacking your church.
Exactly right.
Exactly.
That's exactly right.
Right.
So then, the natural response is, my God, that bitch, I'm going to hate her. How dare she?
Right.
And that's what they probably did with Heber in order to get him. And I'm sure they also changed what he tried to say because no communication leaves there without going through a security check itself to alter it to make sure that it is absolutely spot on to the Scientology standards and ways.
Right. Well, what I heard was that when the sheriff's department, who, by the way, goes there often for barbecues,
That's right.
Scientology has open houses, and they only allow the sheriff's department to see what they want them to see.
Mm-hmm.
They stage these. Look at Heber sitting in a chair with a handler and a blanket reading a book. Becky, have you ever sat in a chair reading a damn book at the Gold Base?
Heavens, no. Are you kidding?
Oh, I did it 24 hours a day. That's all I did, all the time I was there.
Yeah.
I sat in the chair with the blanket over me reading a fucking book. You're
But
right.
we got to work at those parties, and I would invite the vendors that worked with us at the time so they could come see what happy people we were at Golden Era Productions, what a beautiful property we lived on, and try and convince them. And then the funny part about it was when I did leave and talked to some of those vendors who I was friends with, they really, would help me out. They would say, oh, my God, thank God you're out. I hope you recover. And I'd be like, what do you mean you hope I recover? And they'd be like, well, your viewpoint, honey, your viewpoint.
Right.
And they were right.
Yeah.
Because I was so brainwashed and tainted against real life.
Right, but the sick thing is to know that there's actually the staging going on to present to law enforcement. Law enforcement
Yep.
cannot do anything other than say, "Oh, okay, I
That's
guess
right.
you're okay."
Yep.
They can't.
And they're not trained enough in cults and how they work, but certainly not how Scientology works, and that this is all concocted and this is all manipulated to present to law enforcement and the public that everything is fine here, nothing to see, nobody's being locked in a room, no one's being abused. I don't know why law enforcement, when they're there doing their friendly barbecues and being jerked off by Scientology, they simply don't pick up a phone and try to call 911.
Yeah.
I don't understand why they're not getting educated in what's going on there.
I can answer. Hold on, Leah. I can answer
ahead,
one of your
please.
questions because literally, when you did have public people at the base, they can turn the phones to call 911, and it did happen because we had a vendor party at the base one day, or not a vendor. It was I don't know what
band,
group.
we played it.
The band was playing. We had a guy at that party who had a heart attack.
And died.
I literally drove his wife to the hospital. I don't even remember it, but they can program the phone so that if something is happening, a public event like that, that anyone can pick up a phone and dial 911.
I see. So they switch it over.
Correct.
Wow.
Yep.
It's just never ending.
And
It
then
is
Becky got punished for taking the woman to the hospital.
Why?
Yeah, I literally drove the wife to the hospital, but because my last name was Miscavige, and I am the type of person that I went into that emergency room and I was totally taking over the place. And with Scientology, good reactions and things and handling the people and calming them down and getting the relatives called and blah, blah, blah. But, oh, yeah, I ended up doing what was called an amends project for doing this, for helping this woman and her family overcome a time of serious grief. And yeah, I was up day and night scrubbing a bathroom with a toothbrush and then supposedly being, I was supposed to be happy about working the next day. And
But what was the reason?
Because
Becky,
she may
they
have been brought bad public relations on David Miscavige.
That's right.
Since she had the last name.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
The
Because
insanity
you were
goes
connected
on.
to this man's unfortunate
name.
death. Okay.
And what was really
Wow.
funny at the time, because I never actually had changed my name when we got married in 1990. People at the base changed it for me legally. They changed my Social Security, my passport, and it wasn't until I went to fly somewhere, my driver's license didn't match my passport. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know my passport said Miscavige when I never
Wow.
changed my name. Yeah, they did it
Wow.
for me.
Right.
So then I got
Right.
my ass kicked for being a Miscavige.
Right.
Okay,
Now,
so
I want to urge people who, have family members at the Gold Base. I mean, this does take some courage to fight for your family members who are there. And that's not just at the Gold Base. I mean, if you have family members that are dabbling in Scientology, doing courses in Scientology, I just want to continue to urge people to get them out, to discourage them from this life, to fight.
Yeah, you got to fight. You have to just reach out to them, even send them, if they're at the Gold Base, send them letters, a lot of them, because that's just, even if they're all nice letters, that's cool. But if you send a lot of them, you're going to tie up too many people with too much stuff. And believe me, it'll take impact upon the people that are there.
okay, Leah, are you there? Okay, well, this is the end of the program, and I just want to say, watch the final showing of Aftermath, which is going to be on the 26th of August, Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Due to an unbelievable technical difficulty, we lost Leah, but I can tell you, it was wonderful having her on, and I appreciate the time she took to talk to me. And this is, sometimes you get hit in the teeth with technology, and this is one of them. Now, all of you who saw this, if you are interested in helping out in any way, you could become a patron on this program. Just go to therealronmiscavige.com. And we don't have a sponsor, so our shows are fully open, and people can come on and say anything they would like. Anyway, for me, I'm Ron Miscavige and my wife, Becky Miscavige. I want to say this is Life After Scientology. I will see you on the next episode. Bye-bye now.